What is up, everybody? Welcome back. If you're tuning in, I really appreciate it because it has been about 2 months, give or take, since I last uploaded anything to this channel. I've been busy. I was on vacation, a lot of stuff in the personal life, but not to bore you guys with any of that stuff. I'm here. I'm back talking about Barcelona. If you're following this page, if you're tuning in, that means you kind of already are tapped in to an extent, right? And it's been a crazy season so far. I actually wanted to make this video before yesterday's match against Chelsea, and I decided, you know what? Let me hold off. Let me just wait, and see how the match unfolds. So this isn't going to be the typical match recap, match preview. I'm just going to talk about the team as a whole, where they stand at the moment, the state of the club, of the team, of the squad. Get some things off my chest because safe to say the last few weeks uh, following this team have been eventful. They've been stressful. It's been up and down. It's a roller coaster following this club. Um, so let's just get right into it. Right? So the state of FC Barcelona, right? Been an up and down season so far, right? If you're following the team, the story so far, they're currently second in La Liga, a point behind Real Madrid, which, all things considered, not that bad, right? Not that bad. The way they've been playing, inconsistencies, it's really not that, the end of the world. Um, but could be better. Could be better, right? They did make up that ground in La Liga. A lot of injuries, a lot of inconsistency. Hansi Flick is, still dead set on applying the high line to this team, and to sometimes it works, sometimes it's to our detriment. I'll get into that. But the story so far, not as dominant as last season, even though last season they kind of waited until midseason to get it rolling around this time. Um, but some ups and downs, like I said, right? So we're gonna just backtrack because the last two matches for Barcelona could not have possibly been so polar opposite from one another, total opposite sides of the spectrum. We're talking about the return to the Camp Nou after waiting almost 3 years to do so. A party, a great performance of the team, a great victory, a great introduction to the new stadium, a reminder of how much atmosphere the Camp Nou brings for the club, how much life the club plays with when they're at the Camp Nou. This was something that we were promised some point last season. Then it was in the summer, and it just was kind of it got to a point where it was, well, I'll believe it when I see it. We saw it. It was beautiful. It's only going to continue to get better. Like I said, 4-0 victory versus Athletic Club. La Liga match week 13. They finally received the permits from the city of Barcelona to have an attendance higher than what would have been at the Montjuic. Shout out to Montjuic. Some ups and downs. Not my favorite venue for Barcelona, but there were some really great memories there. Some great games between last season and the year before, and I will always cherish some of those memories. I really will. But there's nothing like the Camp Nou. Messi came back, blessed the new stadium before it officially opened. Vibes were good. Vibes were good, right? They dominated against Athletic Club. Nico Williams came to town, got smoked, got packed up, shipped away, and it was great, right? Everything was so good. I'm starting to think, we're back after some shaky performances in the UCL, after some shaky performances in La Liga. You know, kind of started feeling like, Rafinha's back. Um, all these guys are getting back from injury. Jean Garcia's back, and the vibes were good. The vibes were great. I would even go as far to say the vibes were great. And so let's just start with the positives, right? I'm gonna go over some standout performers so far for the team this season, right? The usual suspects. We have Lamine Yamal, you know, 18-year-old, one of the best players in the world, perhaps at his position, the best in the world. For whatever reason, there seems to be a big debate about that these days, but it's always gonna be that way. Pedri, the young Fermin, my preferred Barca midfield. When these three guys are healthy, this is one of the best midfields in the entire footballing world. No less than top five, I would say. I personally feel they're top three midfield in the world when healthy. Rashford, came on a loan deal from Man United. He's on a prove it deal. He wants to play for England in the World Cup. He wants consistent minutes. He wants to score. He wants to help and contribute to a winning team. And he's doing great so far, especially in the time that Rafinha has missed this season due to hamstring injuries, almost 2 months. Rashford has slotted in seamlessly to that role on the left wing, playing a little bit up top. He's just done everything we've asked him and more, to be honest with you. And I love Rashford on Barcelona. Eric Garcia, who I'll be honest, and I've said it in my previous videos, wasn't always the biggest fan of Eric, right? At times I thought he was a jack of all trades, master of none. I thought this guy was, like a diet Sergi Roberto, right? This guy played a lot of positions, wasn't really great at any of them. He has completely shut me up since, the entirety of 2025. At the beginning of this year, around the January transfer window, there was a lot of rumors that they were going to sell him. He didn't have a role in the squad. Flick stood behind him. Flick gave him increased minutes, and he has just been fantastic, whether it's at center defensive mid, whether it's at right back, whether it's at center back. Eric puts his head down, puts in a shift damn near every single match, and he is just one of the most dependable, versatile, and consistent players on Barcelona. And without him this season, I don't think it's crazy to say like we would be looking even worse than we are, which is tough to imagine, right? So, also, John Garcia, who I've shown love to in previous videos, talking about previous matches. They recently against Athletic Club had their first clean sheet since the last start of John Garcia. He picked up an injury, was out. Chesney, who I got a lot of love for Chesney, has some great performances in a Barca kit, but let's just be honest, at this point in his career, is not on the same level, is not as versatile, is not as well rounded of a keeper as John Garcia. Doesn't lock down the defense, from the back the same way that John Garcia can, right? So these are my standout performers for Barca so far. I've been so pleased with the way that all these guys are playing. Granted, there's some people that probably would be on this list or making their way towards it. Lewandowski's been great since coming back from injury. Rafinha has been injured almost the entire season so far, but these guys just have been so good and so dependable. Like I said, I want to get the positives out of the way because yesterday we were embarrassed at Stamford Bridge against Chelsea in the Champions League. Embarrassed, right? For anyone that watched this game, as a neutral, I'm very interested to hear what your point of view is because I feel like everything that I'm seeing online is from either Barcelona fans or from Chelsea fans. I haven't heard many neutral opinions. The reality is Barcelona was embarrassed yesterday, 3-0 in the Champions League away at Stamford Bridge. A tough place to play, no doubt about it, right? Now, from my perspective, and I'm not even going to go super analytical, I'm not even going to go super in-depth about this game the way that I usually do, talking about the lineups. I'll bring some stuff up, but I'm not going to show the stats. I'm just going to talk about the most base level stuff here. I saw the lineup, right? And this was a game that I was extremely excited for because we're reaching full health, near full health. The only really key player who's absent at the moment is Pedri. And granted, you can argue that Pedri is one of the most important players for Barcelona, perhaps the best. I think that he is the best player on Barcelona when he plays. But Rafinha's back. Rashford's back. Lewandowski's back. Lamine is healthy. Fermin is playing. The entire defense is healthy. Garcia's back in between the posts. So I'm thinking, we have a nice shot against Chelsea. And I do think that for the majority of the first half of this game, it was a very even contest. I think it was truly 50-50 until nearing halftime. Ronald Araujo, and I have the picture here of his red card against PSG, of his mistakes against Inter Milan in the Champions League semifinals last season, and now his red card, 2 yellows in the first half against Chelsea at Stamford Bridge. Which I just want to say, the first yellow he received was terrible, and I don't think he deserved it. But with that being said, I don't want to make an excuse for him because if you're on a yellow and you play a position such as center back where you can be easily exploited and targeted by the other team to try and make you commit another foul, you got to be that much more careful, that much more aware of the situation that you're in. And so I have no sympathy for Ronaldo Araujo in this situation because he's been down this road before and he keeps making the same mental, reckless mistake over and over and over. And I don't want to pile on the guy because he's a captain. He's been with Barcelona for years at this point. I am still a big fan of Ronaldo Araujo, but I don't know how much longer he has playing at this team as a consistent starter. And if he wants to continue to get minutes, this is not the way to go about it. Before the game started, the lineups were released. Like I said, Rafinha, Rashford had returned from injury, were available. But for whatever reason, and I don't want to question Hansi Flick's tactics because he's one of the best managers in the world right now. You saw what he was able to do with this team last season. But for whatever reason, he decided to come with the same tactical layout from the weekend of Ferran and Lewandowski up top with Lamine Yamal front three. Now, this I saw this and instantly started telling my friends, I don't know about this, guys. We're in for a long night. Ferran Lewandowski, not a fan of it. I understand if you have to do it out of necessity, which is exactly what needed to happen against Athletic Bilbao, Athletic Club. Rafinha and Rashford were not fully available. The word is that Rafinha and Rashford were available for this match, and I'm just wondering why we wouldn't try to give our best possible attack, our best possible 11. I know that Ferran has been scoring. I understand that, but there's nobody who watches this club, this team on a weekly basis who will have the argument that Rashford or Rafinha would not be better additions to the starting lineup than Ferran Torres for what they offer. They offer goal scoring, they offer creativity, they offer pace, they offer all the things that Ferran unfortunately does not offer. Ferran scores goals, yes, but he's not as clinical as a Lewandowski. He's not as clinical as a Rafinha or Rashford in front of goal. I'm sorry, he's just not. So when I saw that, I was a little worried. But I said, you know what? Let me see how it goes. The game started. They were extremely sluggish. They didn't seem like they really wanted it. They just didn't seem motivated. And Chelsea did. Fair play to Chelsea. They played a great game. They played very physical. They played very rough. They have guys like Enzo Fernandez, who I'm a huge fan of as an Argentinian. I watch him play for Argentina. I watch him play for Chelsea. This guy does it all. He was really the one terrorizing. The internet's gonna go on and say that Estevao, who did have a good game, is the man of the match, or Cucurella. For me, one of the standout performers, the person that was giving Barcelona the most problems in the first half and much of the second was Enzo Fernandez. This guy was like all over the place, and they're just a good team, right? So Barca was exposed. Barca was exposed. Their attacking was predictable. Their build-up play was bad. The defense is extremely. I mean, the first goal was an own goal. They're just unorganized, right? They're just unorganized, and this is such a crazy contrast from what we saw over the weekend against Athletic Club at Camp Nou, where they played perhaps their best game of the season. They looked organized, right? There were some changes in the lineup, especially in the defensive end with Gerard Martin playing left center back as a left-footed center back. And the defense looked great. And I thought maybe we would try that out again against Chelsea. Flick decided not to. He decided to shake things up once again, and we paid for it. And, sure enough, like I said, the game really wasn't out of reach. Ferran missed a sitter early on, 5 minutes into the game, which, say what you want, tell me I'm coping, whatever. The reality is, if you go up 1-0 on the road in a Champions League game, the entire approach, the outlook, the mentality for the rest of the game is different than missing these easy opportunities. Then you go down 1-0, then you go down a red card. It just seems like a mountain that's too high to climb. So I really wish that, Ferran would have not only put that chance away, but to be honest with you, that he wasn't in the starting lineup. I like what he offers off the bench. I like what he offers as a substitute for Lewandowski. I would have liked to see either Rafinha or Rashford or both in the starting lineup if they were available, because, and I don't want to hear the argument, oh, they weren't ready to start. They came on in the second half when the game was already 2-0 out of reach, 10 men after Araujo's red card. So I just don't see why they couldn't have started. Don't put those guys on if they're not fully healthy and ready to play, a solid amount of minutes, and risk them for injury or burnout when the game's already out of reach. At that point, why bother, you know? But anyway, so it was just a bad performance. I'm not going to overreact. I do think had the game been 11 men, we're looking at something completely different. I don't know if we would have won. I don't know if, they would have drew. I don't know what happens. Nobody will ever know. What I do know is that some of the same problems that keep showing themselves when Barca plays tough comp. Now, we've already failed the test against PSG. We failed the test against Real Madrid. We've now failed the test against Chelsea. You look at the best teams that Barca has played this season, they've lost to all of them. Granted, there's been some injuries, there's been inconsistencies in the lineup, there's been all of these things, but it's getting to a point now where it's not becoming a fluke, it's not a coincidence, it's becoming a pattern. And we need to address these problems, right? So let's talk about the weaknesses, the real weaknesses on this side, right? The lack of depth in defense is quite literally destroying this team right now. And when I say lack of depth, I mean lack of options, because you are looking at a defense of Balde, who's pretty much locked in at left back. You're looking at a defense of knowing that you kind of need to have either Araujo or Cubarsi in the center. I prefer Cubarsi at the right center back position, but neither of these guys are left center backs. Losing Inigo Martinez, I don't want to sound like a broken record, but has been absolutely horrible for this team. They have not recovered. And then Kunde Garcia at right back, but typically Garcia has been the first guy to replace either Cubarsi or Araujo in the middle of the park. So you don't always have that option of playing Eddie at right back. Eddie sometimes slots in as center defensive mid. He's doing everything we ask him for. We can't also expect him to consistently play three positions at once. It's not possible. He's only one player. So the lack of depth in defense, I think this is something that can be easily fixed. Do I think they will fix it this season? No. I think with and this brings me to my second weakness, financial restrictions. I don't know if there's any way we can bring in a guy like Alejandro Grimaldo from Bayer Leverkusen. I don't know if we can bring in a Mark Guehi. I don't know if we can bring in a Nico Schlotterbeck this season, right? Those are the guys that I keep hearing rumors about. Those are guys that fit their profiles, match Barcelona very well. But the reality of the situation is, with the financial restrictions, with the registration restrictions, and the situation that Barca's in, I think we're still some time away from them being able to spend freely. And maybe they're able to spend freely in the summer with the revenue they're going to generate from being back at the Camp Nou and this entire season. I just don't think that come January, which is already, just over a month from now, will they be able to bring in reinforcements? So that will remain to be seen, right? And another thing, this has kind of been, it's all hand in hand, but the defensive organization, like I said, not having the left center back, these guys are playing out of position. They're not getting the most from their game. Flick's not getting the most out of these guys because they're not playing in a position that they're comfortable playing. Last season, Araujo was on the bench most of the season that he was healthy. It was Inigo Martinez and Cubarsi in the center. And, it's obvious that Araujo is not comfortable playing the high line, high risk defense, even though you would think that he would be well suited for it with his pace, with his physicality, his ability to recover if he gets beat with, a through ball or an over the top pass. But he's just been bad. And there have been games where he's shown his value. And I do think, again, to be fair to him, these high risk tactics from Flick don't do him any favors, because it's been shown that with a normal line, Araujo can be a nice, solid, at times world class defender. And he showed that in previous years for Barca under Xavi. But it's been a disaster this year, and this is the number one thing holding this team back right now. It's so obvious. It's so obvious that center back is the biggest glaring hole that we have on this team. Less pressing compared to last season. It as a collective, the team seems to have a little bit less desire to win the ball back, and that's a key component of these tactics from Hansi Flick. You need to press to win the ball back, to launch a counterattack, to put pressure on the opposing defense. If you're walking around, if you're ball watching, it's not going to work. It's just not going to work. It requires effort from the collective. The number one person who presses to win the ball back in attack is Rafinha. He's been out most of the season and just got back, played a half against against Chelsea. That's PTSD talking right there. And looked to be the most eager person to press. He looked like he had the most energy. Had the most desire to play. And we need that from everybody. The lack of home field advantage until now, right? Not playing in the Montjuic, like I said, good stadium, but not nearly the atmosphere that Barcelona deserves and is used to having in the Camp Nou. So we'll see what kind of atmosphere the Camp Nou brings throughout the rest of the year, but I do think for sure it will be an upgrade for the Montjuic, right? So these are just some of the weaknesses. Like I said, I mean, it's in a bad state right now. I gotta be honest. I do trust Hansi Flick, but it's a little bit frustrating that he's like kind of watching this happen week after week after week. Sometimes it doesn't bite us. Other times it absolutely destroys the team. And he just seems to have an approach of like, well, eventually it'll fix itself. It's not gonna fix itself. Like let's call it what it is. This is the team that we have. It might be time to make some minor adjustments. I don't know what those adjustments are, but it's not working. It's obviously not working. Teams are more adjusted to us. Teams are prepared to play against this team. They have a clear game plan, and that's just to exploit this high line because we seem to have no answer for it. Without John Garcia, some of these games would have cartoonish score lines. So all we can do is look forward into the future. Thankfully, it is still early in the season. You look at a season like last year, and granted, it's not an apples to apples scenario, but PSG struggled, right? All the way up until maybe January, February, when they were able to bring in Kvaratskhelia. Things changed for PSG around the midway point of last season. They were not automatic qualifiers for the round of 16 in the Champions League. That's kind of the thing that I'm holding on to hope for. Um, so there's still some time to right the ship, but as of right now, it's not looking good. It's not looking good, boys. Upcoming matches, November 29th, this weekend in La Liga, home against Deportivo Alaves, right? So should be a winnable game. This is a game that they need to use to get back on track, um, somewhat. And then this is the next big test coming up. Atletico Madrid in La Liga. They hung 5 goals on Real Madrid, who beat Barcelona 2-1 in the Clásico. This is a matchup that I'm very interested to see. I do think Pedri will be back available. Hopefully, everybody else stays healthy. I really still want to see this team full strength against some tough opposition because we haven't had the opportunity to do so yet this year. We'll see how that goes. But just wanted to come on and talk about the state of the team. I know a lot of people are overreacting. I'm not one of them. Whether you lose 1-0, 5-0, 10-0, I know that there's some, you can get overreactionary, but a loss is a loss. I think the 3-0 score line rather against Chelsea was a little bit misleading given the red card and the way the game was going, but Chelsea deserved to win yesterday. Fair play to them. Let's move on, put it in the rear view, get back on track against Alaves. Not giving up on the season just yet. Still every trophy still to play for. So let's go. Thank you guys for tuning in, and I will be back very, very soon. Promise it won't be 2 months this time. Until then, Visa Barça. Let's go.